All right. I'm sure we'll have some other friends join us eventually here. But for those that haven't been able to jump on the Nearpod link, I just shared that with you in the chat. So please feel free to jump on there and get on. Let's start going over things. So first thing, this lesson is being recorded for learning purposes, just to make you aware. And then also just my virtual expectations, right? Remember, we're following along with the Nearpod lesson. Use the chat tool respectfully and appropriately, and also respond to questions and instructions the first time. So, all right, we're going to talk about your favorite thing in the world, which is basically assessments and feedback. So it's tests. I know people like cringe when they hear the word test, but I'm hoping like after we go through this a little bit, you'll kind of understand like why we give tests in regards to like it's all about the learning process rather than just kind of scaring you all, right? um, but it's a way to learn, right? And so we'll kind of go over that in just a second here. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to jump into the course real quick, make sure you guys are where you need to be, that kind of stuff. So the first one is announce on the announcement page, right? This is where I put all my recordings. So if you've missed a week or whatever, please go back and look there. If we look at the course plan, you see live class on Thursday. Some things happening. We don't have school on the 20th, so don't log in. I guess if you're behind, log in, but there will not be any live classes for you. And then what's assigned this week will be due on Wednesday, and they'll have another class on the 23rd. End of the block is the 17th, and then I'll get you more details about the skills test as it comes. But if you want a certificate for this class, that kind of stuff, we're going to take that skills test at our regular time on Thursday at 1:15. So, okay, that gets us there. Today, we're going to be starting Unit 5. As you can see, there's 6 units in this course. So this is the second to last unit. Unit 5, we're going to talk about the learning process. And I'm being nice to you guys. We only have one little quiz for this unit, okay? Which will go over the information we're going to go over in just a second here. And then at the very end, we're going to go over this quiz and make it nice and easy, okay? All right, so first thing, just a little overview. What assessment and feedback is for. It's to assess effectively through marking and feedback, advice on how to get the most from our learners. Now, I think what we do when we take tests is we just look at the score and be like, oh, I got 72% or something like that, right? We don't really go back and we don't look at what we may have missed and try to self-correct. A lot of times when you do that correction, you get that feedback. It's really good because next time you're not going to make that mistake. One of the things that's very valuable, specifically like in writing and stuff like that, is getting that feedback. I remember in college, one of the things I wasn't the greatest writer and I didn't like to write that much. But what I'd do is I'd go into they call the writing center, and I would have somebody give me feedback on what I'd write and fix things and change things. And that's the learning process that needs to be going through in order to effectively learn. So just kind of some questions to ask yourself. So like in this class, right, it's teaching as a profession. So if you're trying to go and put yourself like in the teacher's uh, point of view, right, of looking from it, you need to ask yourselves, how do you assess learning? Okay. So there's multiple ways you can look at assessing learning. It could be through tests. The way the state of Utah kind of does it is through like the end of year assessments. The way some colleges do it is through like ATC or SAT exams. But there's different ways you can assess if somebody's learning or not, right? Um, does it lead to improvements, okay, when you're assessing, right? And I would say if you're trying to look at class to learn, what is going to be the most effective to improve? And then the last thing, is it effective? Okay. And then what is the purpose of feedback? So, does anybody want to put on the chat real quick what they think the purpose of feedback is? No one? Okay, to understand and grow in the places you are struggling in. Yeah, right. And sometimes it's hard to take that feedback because sometimes we have our perfectionist people out there, right? So they put to assess where your strengths and weaknesses are. Yeah, right. And feedback can be good or bad, right? And if we think of it as just continual improvement and trying to grow, and it's not like just you have a one-time chance, most everything in life you can have do-overs in, right? Like if I fail my permit test at the driver's license division, I can go and retake that again. Okay, it's not a big deal. If I fail something else, I can redo it. Okay, there's not a lot of like this is the only chance. So learning and hopefully what's called we call shaping behavior and making behavior the way that puts you in the right way, okay, to get the desired performance and goal. Okay, so if you're thinking about learners, so if you were teaching a class and everybody's hyper focused on these, but uh, why do we give grades as teachers? Okay, any thoughts on that? Okay, to show how you're doing. I like that. Okay. So that's kind of like to show how you're doing. Um, I always realize like when I zero out grades, like I zeroed out grades today, this morning. And then as soon as I zeroed out grades, I noticed a lot of you guys turned things in, right? Um, and then I went back and I graded those. And so that's really to motivate, right? Um, a lot of people don't like those zeros, right? That's why I cry when grades are zeroed out. Yeah, so, I mean, but you zero out, but it motivates you to get it done, right? And then it also motivates you for feedback. Like, if you don't do super well on something, you know that you go back, it's feedback that you probably don't know that just as well as you should, and so you can go back and do that. That's why one of the reasons I do like unlimited like retries and stuff on quizzes and everything is because I want you to be able to try again and do it again, right? Because then you actually learn the material. Okay, let's watch a little video about just kind of a theory on assessments and just kind of the power of them. We'll go from there.
Assessment is all around us. If you're a skater at a skate park, you're engaging in self-assessment every time you reflect on your progress and plan your next steps. If you're a runner training for a marathon, you look at time splits and compare it to your goals. If you're a musician, you're engaging in assessment every time you listen to yourself play and make modifications to your approach. As an author, you engage in self assessment when you revise your work, and it's not always individual. Often, assessment will happen in community. If you're a chef, you're engaging in peer assessment when you ask a trusted fellow chef, how does this taste? If you're an artist, you might ask for an extra set of eyes on a particular project. If you're an engineer, you might observe users to see if your design is working. And if you do any kind of creative work, both self assessment and peer assessment are vital for improving your craft. It helps you refine your process and helps you improve your products. Assessment helps us figure out what we know, what we don't know, and what steps we need to take in the future to master a skill or understand a concept at a deeper level. Okay, but what does this mean in the classroom? Well, it starts with self assessment. Here, students engage in goal setting, where they set goals, plan their approach, and keep track of the progress. They also engage in self-reflections. Here they can reflect on the learning process, but also focus on the strengths and weaknesses of their products, which then leads to new iterations. A similar option is a student survey with multiple choice, checkboxes, and Likert scales. In some cases, students might use a self assessment rubric. Students are able to look at the progression from emerging to mastery with specific descriptions in various categories. They are able to gain an accurate view on what they are doing while also having a clear picture of where they need to be. Students might also use checklists. These can be a powerful diagnostic tool that students use before, during, and after a specific task. When projects are done, they can present their work in a portfolio where they reflect on what they've learned. Peer assessment is also important. One option is the 10-minute peer feedback system. This begins with one student sharing their work or pitching an idea while the other student actively listens. It then moves to a chance to ask clarifying questions, get feedback, respond to feedback, and chart out your next steps. Another option is structured feedback with sentence stems. This is especially helpful for ELL students. Or you could use the 3-2-1 structure. Now, this is simple. Students provide 3 strengths, 2 areas of improvement, and 1 question that they still have. Another option is the peer feedback carousel. Here, each group has a stack of sticky notes, and they offer anonymous feedback as they move from group to group to group. Or you could keep it more open-ended with peer coaching. Students interview each other about the process, they guide reflection, and they provide feedback. Now, we often think of classroom assessment as a conversation between teachers and students. But in life, students won't always have a teacher to grade their work or give them necessary feedback. And this is why we need self assessment and peer assessment every day. The more we can integrate this into our lessons, the better prepared students will be for the creative life.
All right. So as that kind of video showed us, we have like just assessments throughout like our entire lives of however we do things, whatever we're going to go into. And there's different types of assessments. There's maybe what's called formative and summative assessments. And we'll go over what those 2 different ones are. And then they also talked about different types of feedback, right? Getting feedback from peers, so other people around you, as well as maybe from a more knowledgeable source, like possibly a teacher or somebody that's advising you. And then also questioning, right? One of the greatest ways to learn is always being able to question what somebody said. Well, can you clarify that and go deeper and deeper until you really understand? And I know if something especially learning things like step by step, I really have to ask questions all the time in order to learn the process that's going on. So just basically the assessment process, right? We have, and if we take an example of some type of goal somebody wants to work on, right? So it was interesting. He talked about like a skateboarder, right? And so basically they have goals and objectives, like I want to do some type of trick on a half pipe with things, right? So you're going to question if you can do this. You have the setting, you get some guidance, find other people to like model it for you. Like, like Tony Hawk, he's probably pretty good at, I don't know. You guys even know who Tony Hawk is anymore? He's still around, right? He's a big skateboarder guy, like founder. Yep. Okay. Some people know who he is. Good. And then you mark, you got peer review, right? So you ask your friends, oh, how'd I do on that? Maybe you have them video you, right? You ask like a teacher, somebody that knows that's done it before, a combination. You basically look at different things that you need to improve on. It's like, hey, I don't have the strength, or I'm not getting the speed fast enough. I need to go to my strength. So you might have to go back and say, hey, I got to go to the gym and work these muscles in order to get that. And then you go and you make improvements and you kind of go through that cycle, right? And so that's the assessment process that we're looking at here. Here's another one that's kind of interesting. It's kind of more like feedback. Kind of when you receive feedback, there's 3 key questions. Where am I going? So where I'm going, how am I going? Am I going? And where is next? And so that follows that same process, but it's questions you want to ask yourself. Like if we're talking about the skateboarding example, right? Where am I going? What do I want to do with this, right? What's my overall goal, right? And then it's how am I going? How are things am I actually making progress? Is there something there? My equipment needs to change? Do I need better wheels or a board or something like that, right? And then where to go next, right? Oh, well, I got to actually make more money in order to get a board or something like that, you know? So you're always kind of doing that and questioning and getting feedback there. So each feedback question works at different levels. And you can kind of look at these levels right here, but it all goes down to like you want like your self level, self-regulation level, your processing level, and your task level. Uh, so all of those kind of need to be in there. So you got to figure out how to do it yourself, how to regulate the level, the processing level that it's going to take to complete the task, and then the task level, right? So if you're trying to do that trick, the task level is going to be your top one that you want to do, but you have to figure out all of these different types of things. Okay, hold on real quick. I just want to see where we're at here because I have a couple of things I needed to. I want to jump to questioning real quick. Okay. So let's talk about questioning because questioning is kind of a big thing. So, what is the purpose of questioning? Okay, it's to seek evidence from a learner that enables teachers to adjust their teaching. So, the reason there's sometimes we ask questions to make one to see if kids are engaged in something, right? We also ask questions to seek if they are actually understanding, right? Um, so for example, right, is 7 a prime number versus why do you think 7 is an example of a prime number would completely be different responses, okay? So it's all depending on what you're trying to think. You usually want to do questions that are not just yes or no questions because they're easily being able to guess that rather than so the question, is 7 a prime number? You guys can easily put in yes or no, right? But why do you think 7 is an example of a prime number? That is a more deeper level of thinking question, and it's going to help you understand if they actually know what the concept of a prime number is. Okay. So if I were to ask that question, who's a math genius in here, huh? What do you think? 7. Why do you think 7 is an example of a prime number? Can anybody give me a response with that? All right, Gabe, what is it?
The definition of a prime number is a number that cannot be created in multiplication by anything except itself and 1. For example, 7 times 1, yeah, it's 7, but then you go to 7 times, but then you go to any other numbers. Any other numbers you can come up with, they will not multiply to create 7.
Perfect. So now I know that Gabe has the understanding of basically what a prime number is, right? Rather than just saying yes or no. So that would be like a teaching example right there. Yep, I love that, Ali. Thank you. You'd get that concept as well, right? So being able to ask questions that are not just yes or no questions is so kind of important. Some really techniques as you're looking at questioning is time to allow for an answer. Okay, and I know it may be awkward sometimes when I ask a question and I'm just like, You know, like Jeopardy's theme song plays in your head. But it gives people time to think and process. We all process at different speeds, and it takes a little while to kind of get those things. Another thing is another way to look at questioning too is it's good to break up into like discuss in pairs or small groups. I don't know if you've heard of the term like think, pair, share. That's something where you can turn to somebody else and then you get more engagement as well than as in a whole class, because then you're engaging your partner, somebody that's right next to you, and people feel more comfortable as well when they're taught. When some people don't feel as comfortable talking in large groups, so that's a way to do it. One thing they talked about as well is kind of avoid raising hands. I think depending on the situation, I would agree with that. And then use wrong answers to correct the ones, right? So what you want to do is everybody has prior knowledge or prior learning experiences. So you want to build off what they know. So not really say, oh, that's wrong, right? And move on, but take what they said and build off of it to shape them to the correct answer that they want to do. Okay. All right. So as we talk about, learning is self-evaluation, target setting, improving. It's a process, and it's all done through assessments and feedback as we kind of give those as we're learning there. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over definitions of these because you'll need these in your quiz. The first one is feedback. Feedback is the information given to a learner about the learner's performance relative to the learning goals or outcomes. It should aim to and be capable of producing improvement in students' learning. Okay. So I could say feedback, you're an idiot. I always like that off oh, what's that show? The Grinch, right? You're an idiot. You're an idiot, right? Is he echoing to himself? That's not what the feedback that we're looking for, right? Something that's going to help improve student learning. Okay. That doesn't help anybody by saying that. Okay. We talked about formative assessments. Okay. Formative assessments is a planned, ongoing process by using all students and teachers during learning and teaching to elicit and use evidence of a student's learning to improve student understanding and an intended disciplinary learning outcomes and support students to become self-directed learners. So you think of formative more as a process to be able to go through and continue that learning and help improve the understanding of what's going on. So it's a formative. So formative, I would say like, you know, like one of the things I like to use when I was in the brick and mortar class was whiteboards, and everybody could write on their whiteboards and they could hold them up so I could see that. So that would be like a formative assessment where I could see what they're doing and look at the process. The other one is a summative, right? And this is the one that a lot of people don't like, right? That scares people. This is the summative assessment is to evaluate students' learning by the end of the instructional unit by comparing against some standard or benchmark. Summative assessments are often high stakes, which means that they are of high point value. So this would be like an end of course test or ACT, SAT, or end of level testing that maybe we don't like, but there's some value in these because it kind of sees you and marks you. The NWEA that you guys do, all of that would kind of go into there. Okay. All right. So that leads us then. So I want to go over real quick the 6 questions that you have on this week's quiz. You should be able to get all of these pretty easily, right? Assessing should be used to improve what, right? Feedback, right? If you go here, let me just make this as so you can go throughout the Nearpod if you'd like. What is feedback? We just talked about that. What is a formative assessment? What is a summative assessment? And when you question, you should give, right? We talked about those. And then assessment and feedback are used to improve and process the learner. Is that true or false? Okay. All right. So quick question. Oh, somebody said, are both the criminology and teaching as a profession classes, are they CTE classes? Yes, they are both CTE classes. Good question. Okay. Any other questions on this unit? And then whoever has my introduction to criminal justice class, we have another class in 20 minutes, right? Or a little more than that. Okay, I'll stop the recording, but I'll stick around.